You were telling me a story about how the Hanleys are like the first greenhouses that you worked with, and you were telling about the history of it.
Yeah, so the Hanley tunnels are like extremely popular right now. And the one thing that has always struck me very unusual about that is the similarity to the greenhouses slash tunnels that we were using in my teenage years in the 70s. And at that point, somebody was just taking steel and bending it around the rim of a tractor rim. And we framed these together and cover them with plastic. Plastic was very inferior compared to what is today. It was very short lasting. But then as things evolved, they went away from that, and greenhouses got more technical and things were more braced and all that kind of stuff. And so then about 7 years ago, when David Greenberg brought to my attention these tunnels, and my first reaction, I didn't even think about like the cold frames that we had way back when. My first reaction was like, what kind of a harebrained idea is this? Because all of the greenhouses that we do now are all properly braced with proper fasteners and brackets, and there's a fair bit of hardware that goes into making them durable, whereas these don't have anything. There's no fasteners at all. And so my thinking is like, how in the world can these stand up long term? As I started to understand that, and we tweaked it a little bit, now it has gotten to the point that it is a really popular seller for us, like to the point that we've probably sold about 40,000 lineal feet of the tunnels. And it started out originally that they were all on 6 foot spacing because the idea was just cheap. Cheap was king. But then people were pushing the envelope and pushing the envelope. And so they wanted to get longer and longer. So then we started selling them on 5 foot spacing, which you can, or 4 foot spacing. Now, if you're doing them with 4 foot spacing, then they can remain covered for the wintertime at 6 foot. You have to remove the cover. But the other thing that has very much surprised me about the tunnels compared to our other structures have a huge amount of variation. People want to do this or they want to do that or do this, no problem. We can accommodate all those things. But with the tunnels, there is a very narrow way of doing it. And that is the only way you can do it. Once you start making a little adjustment here or a little adjustment there to make it more convenient to use, you're messing with the package. It's an aerodynamic package with rope over it. And like when you do it right, it works. When you start messing with it, it causes all sorts of issues. There's all sorts of negative things you can say about the tunnels, like, they're inconvenient to get in and like the ventilation is very primitive and all that kind of stuff. But the bottom line is it's the most economical way that you can cover a piece of ground. And so it's something very effective for beginner farmers that don't have very deep pockets. And I guess that's really why the organic sector has really taken to it too, because most of these operations are starting on very low budget. And so these is an extremely simple way of covering space. So
when the ones that you were using back when you were a teenager, did they have the same like candy wrapper kind of style that the Hanleys do, or how was the plastic attached to it?
Okay, so those ones, the hoops were identical, and they were also sitting on rebar, the same way that the tunnels are now. But we actually had a ridge purlin, so it was the same material that the hoops were made of, just going along the top, and they were actually attached with muffler clamps. again, low tech. And then there were braces in each corner. So that because there was a ridge and there was um, the bracing and the ridge, so now it had, you could put an end wall in it and then you could make doors. So the fact with the tunnels having the tail at each end, the tail is the brace. The rope tightening it down between the hoops, that's actually what maintains the spacing. So when you have a ridge, then having a ridge is the first thing that you need before you can put ends in it, because that's what keeps everything apart. But you do need to have some sort of bracing as well. And so, like in a few cases, we have put something together to allow people to make those modifications, but it is definitely not something for a first time user. Like uh, unfortunately, it's just a level of experience is necessary to make that work.
You need to be able to know the different dynamics and why things work the way that they work before you start modifying anything, because that could lead to a very expensive kite.
Right. And see, this was the thing that um, you know, sort of made me leery at first, is because the first tunnels all went to the East Coast. Well, in every case, when I'm talking to somebody from the East Coast, usually in the first minute or two of the conversation, they'll say, it's really windy here. And so obviously anchoring and aerodynamics is that much more important. And so you have to be, but these tunnels, they stand up really, really well out there. But again, there's that very narrow frame of how you can do it, and then it works, and it works really well. When you start adjusting that, you're messing with the system and it's causing grief. Now, one of the things that one of the growers said to me was, if they fall down, who cares? Like, they're so cheap, they're paid for already anyway. As
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 long
a
as it's not in the first week of you installing them.
as a manufacturer, I would like to, uh, you know, approach every sale with a little more confidence that, oh well, blows down, just pick up the pieces and start over. Like, that's that is true, because there is no fasteners. When things do go sort of south in a bad way, um, the piece, you can pick up the pieces. Very seldom is there something damaged to the point that it has to be replaced. Even the plastic seems to survive these ordeals fairly well. Um, where the big risk is that these storms happen when there's a crop in there, and if you're sort of pushing your luck early in the season, late in the season type of thing, there is a lot more at stake than the cost of your tunnel. So that's why we are so adamant about uh, addressing things when somebody says, "Well, can I do this or can I do that?" Now, the easy thing would be just say, "Sure, I want to make a sale." No, I wanted to make a sale that is for your betterment, and
And
certainly that.
that's one of the key values of multi-shelters as well, is that we don't sell you a greenhouse, we help you buy one.
Yeah.
And so we're grateful for being able to do the extra things for Organic Week to help people celebrate and to give people the additional information. And thank you for this little personal story time, and that I think people will find interesting and get a lot out of it. So thank you.